The air in the studio felt heavier than usual that day. The lights were bright, the cameras ready. But Jamie Dornan's posture was different, still, almost fragile. Across from him, the interviewer shuffled a few notes before finally asking the question everyone had wanted to ask for nearly a decade. "Jamie, people have always wondered about you and Dakota Johnson. After all these years, was there ever more than friendship between you?" For a long moment, Jamie said nothing. His eyes drifted downward, his fingers nervously tracing the edge of his sleeve. The silence stretched until even the crew stopped moving. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, "For years, I denied it. Maybe because it hurt too much to admit." Those words landed like a thunderclap. It had been almost 10 years since 50 Shades of Grey took over the world. A film that made Jamie and Dakota one of the most talked about on-screen couples of the decade. Their chemistry was undeniable, too intense to be entirely fiction. Fans saw it, journalists speculated, but every time the question came up, both actors laughed it off, insisting it was just professional connection. Jamie had become an expert at pretending. In public, he was the charming husband, the grounded family man, the actor who moved on from the whirlwind of fame. But behind closed doors, the ghost of something unspoken followed him everywhere. He remembered the first table read for 50 Shades. Dakota had walked into the room with that disarming smile, unfiltered, free, impossible to ignore. They talked, laughed, and from that day forward, something between them shifted. During filming, he found himself memorizing more than lines. He memorized the rhythm of her laughter, the way she tilted her head when she listened, the quiet sadness that sometimes flickered behind her eyes. They told themselves it was acting. It had to be. But when the cameras stopped, that magnetic pull didn't. They'd linger on set after everyone left, talking about music, about life, about the pressure of playing characters people would never forget. Jamie would later call it a dangerous kind of closeness. The more they tried to stay professional, the harder it became. There were nights when the weight of what they couldn't say was louder than the director's cue. He remembered one particular night during the final weeks of shooting. A storm outside, the sound of rain hitting the trailer roof. They sat together in silence for a long time before Dakota whispered, "This will never happen again, will it?" Jamie had no answer. He just looked at her and knew she was right. When the trilogy ended, so did their quiet closeness. They went their separate ways, different films, different lives. Jamie married, started a family, while Dakota chased her own success. To the world, it looked perfect. To him, it felt unfinished. Every few months, her name would appear somewhere, in interviews, award shows, or headlines. He always stopped for a second when he saw her face, as if time itself paused. The spark he thought he had buried never really died. The interviewer's voice pulled him back to the present. "So, all those years when you said there was nothing, that wasn't the whole truth, was it?" Jamie let out a shaky breath, the corner of his mouth twitching between a smile and a wince. "We told the story people wanted to hear," he said quietly. "It was easier that way. Easier to pretend that what we shared was only for the camera." He hesitated, his gaze distant. "But it wasn't just acting. Not for me." The room froze. The confession hung in the air, raw and trembling. For the first time, the man known for playing a character who lived behind masks was letting his own slip. "I think," he continued, "we both knew there was something real there. Something fragile. But real life doesn't always allow you to hold on to what you want. Sometimes, love comes at the wrong time, in the wrong place, and the only way to protect it is to let it go." He swallowed hard, his voice breaking slightly. "For years, I convinced myself that it was nothing more than friendship. But when you lie to yourself long enough, it starts to hurt in ways you can't explain." The interviewer leaned forward, barely whispering, "Do you still think about her?" Jamie looked straight into the camera. His eyes glistened under the bright studio lights. He didn't blink, didn't smile. "Some people never really leave you," he said softly. "You just learn to live with their shadow." The lights dimmed. The room went quiet. And for the first time in years, Jamie Dornan stopped denying what the world had always suspected, that behind the scripts, the smiles, and the years of silence, there had been a truth he could no longer hide. The world reacted instantly. Within hours of the interview airing, headlines blazed across every platform. Jamie Dornan finally admits hidden love for Dakota Johnson. Clips spread like wildfire, his voice trembling, his eyes glistening, and fans around the globe watched the confession on repeat. But Jamie didn't watch it again. The morning after, he woke to a phone filled with messages, journalists, producers, even old friends, all asking the same question. Did you really mean it? He didn't reply. He didn't need to. For once, the truth had spoken for itself. He spent the day walking through London, a cap pulled low over his face. The air was cold, the streets alive with whispers he couldn't hear but somehow knew. Every so often, he'd glance at his reflection in a shop window, a man both relieved and terrified. After years of silence, he had finally said aloud what his heart had carried for so long. But one thought haunted him more than the headlines. Had Dakota seen it? By evening, he couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. He went home, sat in the dim light of his study, and stared at his phone. Her name was still there, buried deep in his contacts, untouched for years. He hesitated, his thumb hovering over the screen. Finally, he typed 3 simple words. "I'm sorry, D." He didn't expect a reply. But minutes later, the screen lit up. A single message appeared. For what? His breath caught. He read it again, as if to make sure it was real. Then his fingers began to move, clumsy but honest. For hiding. For denying something that meant everything. There was a long pause, 2 dots blinking, disappearing, then blinking again. Finally, her answer came. "We both did what we had to. Don't regret it." Jamie stared at the message until the words blurred. He typed back. "I never stopped caring." This time, there was no reply. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. Maybe that was all that needed to be said. Some truths don't demand closure, they simply need to be freed. Days later, Dakota was seen at a film event in Los Angeles. Reporters, eager for a reaction, crowded her with questions. She smiled softly, that same calm, knowing smile she'd always had, and said only one thing. "Jamie's one of the most honest souls I've ever met. What we shared was ours. It doesn't need labels." Her words spread almost as fast as his confession had. And suddenly, what once was rumor became something else entirely. A story not of scandal, but of love, timing, and silence. In private, Jamie felt both peace and pain. He hadn't set out to make headlines. He had simply reached the point where denial hurt more than the truth. During a later interview, when asked if he feared how his revelation might affect his image, he smiled faintly. "I spent years worrying about perception," he said. "But at 43, I'd rather be remembered for being human than perfect." He paused before adding, "Dakota was a part of my life that taught me what connection really means. Not fame, not fiction, but something raw and real." The interviewer asked if he thought they'd ever speak again. Jamie chuckled softly, eyes distant. "We already did," he said. "Sometimes the silence after the words says everything." That night, he sat by the fireplace at home, a soft glow flickering across his face. His family slept upstairs. The world outside was quiet. He picked up an old photo from the early days of 50 Shades, 2 young actors laughing between takes, unguarded, free. He smiled, running his thumb across the edge of the picture. "I hope you're happy," he whispered. The fire crackled softly in reply. Months later, when he was asked again about that terrifying confession, Jamie didn't hesitate. "The truth isn't terrifying," he said. "It's the hiding that destroys you. We spend so much of our lives pretending, but honesty, even when it hurts, is the only way we heal." He leaned back, his expression gentle, calm. "I'll always have love for her," he admitted. "But not every love story is meant to last forever. Some are meant to teach you who you are." And with that, he smiled, Not the charming smile of the movie star the world adored, but the soft, bittersweet smile of a man who had finally stopped running from his past. As the interview ended, the lights dimmed once more. Somewhere in another part of the world, Dakota Johnson scrolled past the headline, paused, and smiled faintly to herself. Maybe, in another time and another life, their paths might have stayed intertwined. But in this one, the truth they finally shared, after years of silence, was enough. Because love, no matter how secret, never truly disappears. It just finds a quieter place to live.